खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. And normally I penalize the last person who sits down. So now you decide who was the last person, right? Yes. Okay, fine. Okay, chair. Down chair. Right. I've got a very difficult topic in my view that we have picked, or rather the GNGC has picked. And I'm a very emotional person. I'm sorry to say. It's in my DNA. Because you know why? Because I was born in Punjab. Punjab is very emotional, dynamic state of India, if you guys know this or not. And that makes me the way I am. So I don't feel guilty at all about myself, how I present myself. Because I'm a Punjabi at heart. And this is where magic happened. This is where, call it Vaheguru, call it Allah, call it Ram, call it God, call it whatever. And I use the word one force came. One force came. One force was revealed as it came by Guru Nanak. And before we actually go on the journey of Japji Sahib, I feel that it's very important that we need to discuss things which are absolutely relevant with Japji Sahib. Because a lot of confusion and a lot of animosities and things happen because we don't understand the things which I'm going to point out at. One of them, I'm going to talk about languages, and the other thing, I'm going to talk about human behavior, because both of these is what makes who we are. In order to understand Japji Sahib, in order to understand Guru Nanak, we need to understand the environment that Guru Nanak Dev Ji came on earth, because that is very, very important. One force, Ik Onkar, call it what you like, because I think we have really, there's too much debate, too much discussion, too much energy being spent on minor things in my view. But instead of actually understanding Akal Purkh, Vaheguru, Allah, Paramatma, whatever name you got to give. In order to understand who is Guru Nanak Sahib, this is the first question on there. In order to understand the whole of Sikhi package, and in order for that, the synthesis whole of Sikhi, in my view, is Japji Sahib. That's why I picked the topic essence of Japji Sahib. Because to me, Japji Sahib is absolutely fundamental in understanding Sikh faith. And before we go on that journey, like I said to you, I want to talk about languages. Because it's languages that can enhance one's life. People have gone to war over languages. Because languages represent identities. Languages represent the scholarly, the intelligentsia, the whole doodah of a country, of a nation, or of a state, or whatever. Therefore, understanding languages is very, very important. So the question comes back to this: 1469, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji revealed himself on earth, what were the languages? What was the environment like in which of those languages that Guru Nanak Dev Ji, when he first went to school? We send our children to school, don't we? Yeah? And when we send our children to school, it's a parent's responsibility sort of pushed to one side. It's the school. And whatever the kids learn at school, the environment that the kid spends at school defines the person as he grows older, because he goes to different schools and through different environments. And this is why it's very, very important to understand at that time when Guru Nanak Dev Ji came on earth, the languages which were predominant, and the languages was she was suppressed. You know, because let's put it this way, Guru Nanak Dev Ji didn't come in a vacuum. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he came in Punjab, and before that, thousands of years before that, there were different cultures, there were different languages, there was different environment. And you know something, all of that enriches a person. That is what makes who we are. Because all that history, the whole legacy, the Veds, the Kitabs, the Sanskrits, the whole doodah of the Indian Indus River, you know, all that, I call it subcontinent, yeah, is what defined the development or coming of Guru Nanak and the environment that he was in. And what else was there? India was invaded nearly 15 times, 16 times, over 300-400 years. All that culture, all that Mahabharata and all that Buddhism that took place, all that different religions, different philosophies, you know, call it, you know, religion. Hindu is not one religion. Hindu is accumulation of hundreds of different religions put together, yeah? And all of that took place. And all of that enriched Punjab, India. And time came when, I think after Ashoka, a Buddhist, a king who decided the policy of non-violence. You know, if you read Buddhism and you go to the history of Buddhism, and you know, at the moment, because as I talk, ideas come to my head and I talk about these. At the moment, I'm reading a book by William Dampale. Downfall, and the Silk Road. The name of the book is Silk Road. And if you read that book, then you know where I'm talking about. Golden, yeah, that's the book. You know what I'm talking about. Right, fine. Okay, if you read that book, and you will see where I'm coming from. Because all of that is relevant to the life of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Because, like I said, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, one force appeared, but one force was very well knowledgeable about all that, because that was in the DNA. Scientists prove it now. What we are today is what our ancestors were. The DNA that I have, because I started in a joking manner, but really, seriously, that is what makes who we are. Yeah, and the DNA of Guru Nanak and going before to his ancestries, you know, all that has made what Guru Nanak Dev Ji was. All that was there. And when Guru Nanak Dev Ji came, and before Guru Nanak Dev Ji, all that cultures, all that Buddhism, all that Hinduism, all that decision, very vital decision possibly, that non-violence, Shoka said, no, we're not going to have any violence, we're not going to have any wars, the whole country is going to decide, doesn't matter what anybody does, we're not going to fight anyone, right? And the consequence of that sort of mentality in the culture, in the society, is what other people took advantage of. In the Middle East, you know, we're talking about Afghans, we're talking about the Iranians, we're talking all those people, they started invading India. And India was invaded, like I said, 15 times, or God knows how many times, over 300-400 years. We need to understand all that before we come to Guru Nanak. And this is why I think sometimes we have become so judgmental. There's a mentality of my way or highway. What I say is right, and everybody else is, you know, doesn't matter. But it's totally wrong. Guru Nanak Dev Ji totally rejects that, absolutely rejects that mentality. And what was the consequence of these Mughals coming to India? What changed? The mentality of the people of India changed. They came invaded so many times, they created havoc in India, and India was at loggerheads with itself. India was burning. What was it burning? In hatred, in animosity to each other. It was, you know, like I said, highway or my way. My religion is better than your religion. My culture is better than your culture. My point of view is better than yours. And that was having effect on the society, in the sense that, the two main religions, they were religions, but they were at loggerheads with each other. They hated each other. And what are the consequences of that? It's like, I give an example of man and wife. Once a mother is impregnated and the child is in a womb, from that point, when that child gets starts breathing and the brain is developed inside after 2 or 3 months, that child is actually listening to parents. And the way they treat each other, what they say to each other, whether, whatever the environment in that house exists between man and wife, that environment is affecting that child. Science is proving this. Gurbani has said it 500 years ago. So that sort of thing, the hatred, the animosity between different religions and my way or highway, that sort of environment is when Guru Nanak Dev Ji came on earth. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji must be thinking, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And this is exactly the point. What did Guru Nanak Dev Ji get himself into? What was there's so much hatred towards each other, so much hatred towards the cultures. My Punjabi culture is better than your Hindu culture. My Punjabi is better than your Bengali or Gujarati or whatever. That attitude, Guru Nanak Dev Ji changed all that attitude. And when Guru Nanak Dev Ji came, that was the environment I've just described. And when Guru Nanak Dev Ji was born, Guru Nanak Dev Ji was actually very, very lucky, in my view, because before he was born, his sister was born, Bibi Nanki. Bibi Nanki. Honestly, when I read history, when I read Bibi Nanki's contribution, I think it's undervalued. Absolutely, it's totally undervalued. We don't even, never mind understanding Sikhi, yaar. We don't even understand Bibi Nanki, where she's coming from and what she had to put up with. She had parents who were affluent, they weren't poor, they were compared with everybody else, they were rich. The father was, their father was controlling the land. The Sildar, he was the Sildar. He had power, he had influence in the area, in the government, in the establishment. He was part of the establishment, for heaven's sake. And when Guru Nanak Dev Ji came, and when Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to school, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji challenged the whole hypocrisy of that time, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji asked the questions to the school teachers and the Maulvis and the Brahmins, and all that dialogue. And when we look at the way the history has described Guru Nanak Dev Ji, I'm sorry to say, the way our Janam Sakhis have described Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the way scholars have understood, they lost the plot. They didn't understand him. And you know something? We are still stuck there. We are still stuck there because we are relying on those references. Instead of lying from the horse's mouth, we are relying on third-hand, second-hand information. And that is where a lot of confusion has been created over the years. And that is why I think talking about the environment and talking about the sister who brought Nanak. Do you know the word Nanki? What does it mean? Nanki de arthan da pata tonu? Nanki oda naam kyun rakha gaya siga? Bibi Nanki da naam kyun rakha si? Pata kise nu? Not you, Pen. Yeah, I know you know it, but I want other people to give me feedbacks. Does anybody know why Bibi Nanki was? Because, and it's still happening. This is woman degradation. Woman regarded as inferior. She was born in her mother's pen. She was born in Nanke. The word is Nanke. And from Nanke, she got the name Bibi Nanki. And why was she born in her parents' house? Why wasn't she born in Nankana Sahib, where Guru Nanak Dev was born? Why wasn't she born, where she lived? That is the question that we need to ask. This was 500 years ago. And, the similar mentality, we are still stuck with that sort of thing. And when she was born, parents were affluent. She was in that environment, and she was the only child, so she was looking forward to when Guru Nanak Dev Ji was going to be born. So when Guru Nanak Dev Ji was born, she had a younger brother that she could love, tender, and also see him grow. And half the time we miss our children's growth because we are far too focused on our work, with our own life, that we actually forget that that time is not going to come back again. When the child is 1, 2 year old, child needs you. He doesn't need your money. He doesn't even know what money means. He needs you. And that is when baby Nanki was there for Nanak. The development of Guru Nanak, baby Nanki played a phenomenal role in that. That is why it's very, very important. That as Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to school, she took him to school most probably, because she is, all Janam Sakhis is all about baby Nanki. There is very little about Guru Nanak Dev Ji's mother, because she was busy, because they had a lot of guests, because of her husband was a Tahsildar. People were coming day in and day out, preparing food, looking after the guests. Whereas baby Nanki was free. She didn't have those responsibilities. So she spent time with Guru Nanak. And when Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to school, and when Guru Nanak Dev Ji questioned the Brahmins and the Patwar, the Maulvis and all that, and when he came home, it was Guru Nanak Dev Ji, some sister Nanki, that he sort of spoke to and said, look, what the hell is happening in our schools? What's happening, this discrimination or these languages? And you know what? Guru Nanak Dev Ji actually wrote a Bani called Patti. Do you know? Yes. Do you know there is a Bani called Patti in Guru Granth Sahib? How many of you do know this? Right? Exactly. And you know, the beauty of it is that Bani, and you know, we're talking about Japji Sahib. Japji Sahib, in my view, everybody has their view. Japji Sahib didn't come first. Japji Sahib was the essence of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's mission. Other Banis of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and I tell you what, after Guru Arjan Dev Ji, it's the largest amount of Bani in Guru Granth Sahib is of Guru Nanak. And you know, we can't talk about Japji Sahib in isolation. We have to talk about, when we talk about Japji Sahib, we have to talk about Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. Without that, we can't talk about it. And when we look at Guru Granth Sahib, now here we are, I'm going to start really controversial things here now. Guru Granth Sahib is a book. Just like any book, Guru Granth Sahib Ji has an index at the beginning, at the end. But when we do Prakash, when we start Akhand Path or Sahaj Path or any, we start from Japji Sahib Ikunkar. We don't read the index, do we? Do we? But there is index there. It tells you on which page, which panna is which Bani. It tells you all that details. All that information is there. Right, so you should be here listening. Stop, hold me in the stairs and ask questions. Now is your opportunity. I don't answer questions in stairways. Right, let's focus. At the beginning of Guru Granth Sahib, there is an index. And in that index, it tells you which panna, which Bani and that. But we don't read that. Because that is not the revelation. That is not Gurbani. That is just information for us. A guide for us. Like I said, it's a book. Any book has that. And right at the end as well, there is also index, reference. And that is, in my view, that is not Bani either. People will come like ton of bricks on me when I say this, but that's the reality. Whether we accept it or not is a different matter. My views are my views, and I don't expect you to accept my views. Just absorb them, play with them. If you like them, accept them. If you don't, throw them away. I have no problem with that. But the reality is, what I say is my view. And that's one view, okay? And it's not the highway or the whatever. I'm very blatant on this. This is a learning environment. This is where we learn, we communicate, At the end, I will take questions. Not today, next time, whatever, when we have the time, because time is running very fast. So, what is this index at the end? What is Ragmala? It's an index of all the rags in Guru Nanak Sahib Maharaj. So it is index. Yeah? So that is the way to understand. Everything in Guru Nanak Sahib, everything in Guru Granth Sahib, in my view, is what science has discovered or will discover, or somewhere along 100 years down the line will be discovered. Because that is how science works. Einstein, when he wrote the theory of relativity, a lot of people said it's a load of hogwash. They said, now what? Everybody accepts it. And in the 50s and 60s, there used to be a program called Star Wars. Star Trek. Yeah, you remember Star Trek? And they used to have a what we call nowadays a mobile in their hand, and they would say they would be speaking to each other. And people used to laugh at watching that program. How is that possible? How can you speak with this tiny thing to someone in other subcontinent all over the world? What is that? That is science. That's the development of science. Exactly in the same way, my friends, my audience, Guru Nanak Dev Ji talks like that. Arbar Gardar Tandukara, what is that? You know, I want to play a video. Where's my phone? Did you manage to put it up there?
No.
Did you manage to do it?
You have to send the video.
Hey?
You have to send the video, not the TikTok.
Oh, well, whatever it is. I sent it to Deepak. Where is he? He's gone. Oh.
Yeah.
Hey?
Next time on the screen, but if you want to hold it, press play and hold it up to your mic.
Yes, I can't even find my WhatsApp in a rush.
Deep breathing.
What if quantum physics disproves God exists? It's not religion. It's the strange truth hidden in physics itself. At the quantum level, reality doesn't exist until it's observed. Particles stay in a blur of possibilities until someone looks. This is called the observer effect. But here's the paradox. Before humans existed, before life itself, who was observing the universe? Some scientists argue there must be a universal observer, a consciousness so vast, it holds reality together. To some that sounds a lot like God, not a God of religion, but a mind behind the fabric of the cosmos. So maybe the question isn't, does God exist? But this, without a greater observer, would the universe exist at all? What if quantum physics disproves God exists? It's not religion. It's the strange truth
Are you
hidden
understanding?
in physics
Are you getting it?
itself. At the
Are you
quantum
listening to
level,
it?
reality doesn't exist
You need to see the
until it's
pictures as well.
observed. Particles stay in a blur of possibilities until someone looks. This is called the observer effect.
No, this is what Guru Nanak Dev Ji is talking about. You know, we talk about quantum physics. Guru Nanak Dev Ji talks about this sort of things in Guru Granth Sahib. But you know something, we are far too involved in trivias, all sorts of little trivial things. But instead of actually understanding Guru Nanak, we are millions of miles away from understanding Guru Nanak and Guru Nanak Dev Ji's philosophy. Because our side, our mental aptitude, our mental, that's fine, this is fine. Yeah, that's fine. Our mental attitude and our mental state of mind, we are still stuck in what I call ego, in the 5 vices, that we haven't got really time for Guru Nanak. We haven't got time for Guru Nanak. Because in order to understand Guru Nanak, we need time, we need patience, And on top of all that, we need to surrender ourselves to Nanak. And we are not willing to do that. I'm sorry. We're not willing to surrender ourselves to Guru Nanak. The day we do that, the day we actually surrender ourselves to Guru Nanak, because let me explain this. And this is the questions I have for these people, who have their views. I respect everybody's view, but I have a challenge for these people. Guru Nanak Dev Ji spent nearly 5 years nearly, in Makkah, in the Middle East. What was Guru Nanak Dev Ji doing there that long time? What was he doing? Yeah, I'll take the questions then. He had so much time. What was he doing? Guru Nanak Dev Ji was developing the ideas which are present in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, which are present in Japji Sahib. Ideas, and how do the ideas develop? Ideas develop through languages. Ideas develop through communication, understanding. Because Middle East, whether we like it or not, Middle East is where most of the faiths have come. What is all this fighting about Lebanon and all this happening there? This, Israel and all that. Most of the world's religions, most of the ideas which are developed all over the world, spiritual ideas, were developed there. That was the hub at that time when Guru Nanak Dev Ji went there. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji had a dialogue with him. And Bhai Gurdas Ji gives the evidence that Guru Nanak Dev Ji went there and he did have a dialogue with him. Because our mentality, our brain likes visual things. It likes to engage with visual things. It likes, that's why 90% of the population of India, for 500 years after Guru Nanak Dev has been shouting the philosophy of Sikh faith, they're still stuck in Pathar Puja. 500 years the Sikhi Prachar has been done and they're still stuck there. I feel sorry for them. And on the other hand, the Islamic faith, if you look at that whole of that trinity, they are loggerheads with each other to prove my faith is better than Christianity, or Jews' faith is better than Islam or not. The world, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, what Guru Nanak Dev Ji did to understand his philosophy, to understand where he's coming from, we need to question these things. Why was Guru Nanak Dev Ji there 5 years? What did he do? What research have we done as a Sikh Qawm on that 5 years? That's just one question. And the similar sort of questions apply because Guru Nanak Dev Ji spent a hell of a lot of his time, not in Nankana Sahib, but doing on these udasis. But my question is, and I'm going back again, we talked about Bibi Nanki, we talked about the development of Guru Nanak as a child, and the questions and the answers, and Bibi Nanki played a fundamental role in that. She was, when he was a child, every child, it doesn't matter what it is, it needs protection. She provided that protection. When there was when we talk about here, when we talk about Guru Nanak Dev Ji's family, he didn't get on with his parents. He was a rebel, absolute rebel he was. He was a rebel, absolutely, because he didn't fit into the system. And who was protecting him? When Guru Nanak Dev Ji grew up, and his father gave him some money, say, go and do some business, do some trade, and he did the trade. We make that story as very, very minute, not very important, but in my view, that's a very, very important story. Because he said, I've done the only trade that I wanted to do, the only trade that mattered. I don't want to even go into the story of that. What I want to do is, when he came back home, he was scared of coming home. He sat outside, under a tree somewhere. And Baba Mardana came and told, look, Guru Nanak is back. And father, family went there. And what happened, you know the story, when Bibi Nanki stood like a warrior in the middle. Bibi Nanki was the first Sikh of the Sikh faith. She was the first disciple of Guru Nanak. You can see why, can't you? Does it make sense to you? It does to me, because that family, mother, father, and older sister, there is only a family of 4, and being a very small family, but being very affluent family, and the only youngest child in the family, he had the freedom of the house in the sense that, his ideas, his father didn't like it because he wasn't spiritually enhanced. He didn't know where Guru Nanak Dev was coming from. All his life, he never understood that. And something that happened 500 years ago. I know somebody who has passed away now. He was a Hindu boy who became a Sikh, and his father, right up to his death, did not speak to him because he converted into Sikh faith. He was a Hindu. He was from a Hindu family. And that boy struggled. But Waheguru helped him, whatever he was. But I can see what people like that through. Trauma, all these tensions, all that, it affects us all. We don't live in isolation. We live in an environment. In that environment, tension, everything grows. Okay? So this is the environment that Guru Nanak Dev Ji came on earth. This is the environment when Guru Nanak Dev Ji challenged the whole establishment, right, left and center. I tell you what, all of you, I ask you, put a hand on your heart. Do you have ever challenged the establishment? Have you ever questioned what's happening in the Middle East now? The Gaza. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. The exploitation, the way the Palestinians are being treated, the way all that's happening. It's easy to sit here and talk. It's easy to have a confrontation on minor things, but instead we need to understand that what Guru Nanak Dev Ji would have gone through when he heard that India is being invaded again. Everybody was going away from Ahmedabad. Everybody was leaving, and Guru Nanak Dev was going there. And people must have thought he must be mad. Why would somebody want to go to a battlefield unless you're going to fight? He didn't go to fight. He wanted to stop the fight. That is what makes Guru Nanak. And this is very, very important. And that is the environment that Guru Nanak Dev Ji grew up in, where there was a hatred, there was resentment, there's animosity and all this. And, when we talk about Japji Sahib, and can we have the next slide somewhere? Just put one next one. Which one have we got? I think we've been through this, haven't we? 1469, everything that happened. Yeah, leave this one on. Yeah. And I've actually discussed all this already. I've gone through with Mata Silakhani, Sirichan. And this is the other thing. I want to hear this. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, we need to give Guru Nanak Dev Ji's wife, Mata Silakhani, the credit. She brought up her children on her own when Guru Nanak Dev Ji went on these missions. And something, about 15 years ago, or possibly 25 years ago, like today, I'm giving a lecture, and I was saying a lot of things about Guru Nanak Dev Ji, how great he was, and this and other. And there was this 10-year boy, he's standing. He said to me, I don't think Guru Nanak Dev Ji was a responsible person at all. He wasn't responsible. He wasn't responsible for his children. He left his children and went away. Well, what sort of father was he that he left his children behind? Are we ready to challenge those questions, ask these questions? And what happened to them? Were they Gursikhs, these two boys? Why weren't they Gursikhs? Everything has to be questioned, but it has to be questioned in a sincere way. It has to be questioned with the process of learning from it, not confrontation, not putting a line through it saying, wrong, 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 but instead, actually the environment at that time, the sacrifices that Guru Nanak Dev Ji made That's the way to answer that question. Guru Nanak Dev Ji knew that he had to pay a price for his family, for him to do what he did. When that kid asked me that question, I wasn't prepared for that, which I'm answering now. I wasn't ready for that because I wasn't developed in my journey of learning Sikhi. I wasn't ready for that, but I am now, because I can say Guru Nanak Dev Ji made sacrifices. That was the price he paid. That he neglected his children so that the world's children could be enlightened about Akal Purkh, about equality, about discrimination, about what's happening in this world, the revelation that other religions, they were on a journey. Every religion is on a journey. Those religions went so far. And there are some salient points in those religions. Every religion has something positive. They have something. And for instance, in Islam, one thing is absolutely clear. They would die for that, which is that there is only one Allah. There is only one God. That is a salient point. But that's all they have. I'm sorry. After that, there is nothing. Same with other religions. There are 1 or 2 points which are positive. But the beauty of Guru Nanak was that Guruji accumulated all those points and integrated as originals and came up with the Gurbani, came up with the Guru Nanak Dev Ji's philosophy. And that philosophy and scientific thoughts that we have now today, in 100 years, 200 years now, people will prove it. Guru Nanak Dev Ji's philosophy will become a reality. Yeah? Like, that's what I want to go back to explain. But when we look at the Bani of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and we look at different rags, the Bani of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, after Guru Arjan Dev Ji, the massive mount, all of that was done. So you need to understand all of that Bani before you come to Japji Sahib. This is the crux of the matter. And what we are doing here, we are, instead of starting at the front, we are starting at the back. We need to understand all of the Bani really in order to understand Japji Sahib. Because even the Mool Mantra, we have given it a Mool Mantra. There is no reference. Guru Nanak Dev Ji doesn't say this is Mool Mantra. Guru Nanak Dev Ji just recited, Guruji just produced it. And something, the language of that Mool Mantra, in order to understand that Mool Mantra, never mind anything else, you need to have a damn good knowledge of Sanskrit. You got to have a damn good knowledge of Persian languages. And you got to have a really, really good of understanding the Punjabi culture. And not just Punjabi culture, the literature, for heaven's sake. Do we know the difference between literature and language? Can somebody put a hand up and can tell me the difference? What's the difference between language and literature? Yes?
Literature means when you're reading something, and language is how you write something, like creative writing.
Yeah, right, yes, but there is other thing. What is in literature which is not in a language? What differentiates the two? Does anybody know what differentiates the two? Yes?
I would say language is just the words.
Yes.
Literature is the stories and the meaning.
The poetry. Literature is the poetry. Literature is what in every language has its own metaphors, similes, and its dialects, and all these things here. Every language. And the beauty is Guru Granth Sahib has his own language. And its own literature, its own language, it has metaphors and similes in there. Because Gurmukhi script, Gurmukhi language, in its own right, has its own grammar and its own metaphors and similes, everything. That just like any other language has. Punjabi has its own, and there's a difference between the two. Punjabi language, not Gurmukhi I'm talking about, Punjabi language, although written in a Gurmukhi script, that has its own grammar, it's got its own literature, it's got its own metaphors and similes. which are totally different from the Guru Granth Sahib's language and grammar and scripts and all that. That is why it's very, very important that we understand that. And, going back again, and let me, I don't know if somebody's keeping a time on time, because I'm not bothered about time. I want to explain this.
I think we're well past the clock now.
Have we? Okay, I'm going to wind up in a few minutes, if that's the time. I don't care. We can start to pick up from where we leave next time. But what we need to understand is that Guru Nanak Dev Ji, in the Mool Mantra, nobody described Akal Purkh the way Guru Nanak Dev Ji did. Absolutely smack on. But as Sikhs, we don't accept it. We don't, honestly, I'm saying we don't accept it. Because we are looking for something which isn't there. And what we should be looking for, which is in there, we think we know better. Because I'm a better scholar than Guru Nanak. I say so. Oh, Guru Nanak Dev Ji happened 500 years ago. I'm now, man, I'm in front of you. And some people say, you must have heard this, yeah? Which is a lot of hogs back. What it is that each word of Mool Mantra, in its own right, you can write books on it. Not 1, 2, hundreds of books. Because each word virtually represents other faiths, ideas and things, the history behind it and all that, which they practiced. But they did not appreciate Guru Nanak. Because Guru Nanak Dev Ji was wonderful, unique, and his philosophy, and yet, because it's not Vaheguru, only Vaheguru understands, not me. And even the word Vaheguru, one word doesn't mean anything. It's accumulation of words. Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, you didn't use Vaheguru. He says, tu hi. And there's 20 pages of tu hi. Once he started writing the qualities of Akal Purkh, Vaheguru, Guruji counted different words, and then he finished with a line, tu hi. In other words, if Guru Nanak Dev Ji the 10th Nanak can't define Akal Purkh in words, who the hell are we? Yeah? So one word is not important. What is important is the characteristics of the whole package. The whole package in the Mool Mantra from Ek Onkar to Gur Prasad. Each of those words are unique. Each of those words, as a Sikh, as a Gur Sikh, has to live it. Gurbani baniye. Become Gurbani yourself. Become those words yourself. And I give example, how can we achieve this? And the practical examples I can give you is you must have heard of Pingalwara. Have you heard of Pingalwara? That guy, Bhagat Singh, Bhagat Ram, I think he was originally. Huh? Puran Singh, sorry. Sorry, I've got it all the way around, haven't I? Yeah. Puran Singh, he accepted one quality of Akal Purkh. One concept. And he lived all his life. And that's concept of Seva. Total, utter Seva. Never mind wrath, never mind Panchakar, never mind anything else. Just absolutely focused on Seva. And look what he became a Bhagat. Not just a Bhagat, he became world renowned. And how many of you know that Bhagat Puran Singh had 3 PhDs to his name? Did you know? He had done 3 PhDs from Guru Nanak Dev University. He was a scholar in his own right. Have any of you read his material? Bhagat Puran Singh की किताबां पढ़ी किसी ने? Well, read them if you want to understand Guru Nanak. You will not understand Guru Nanak until you understand one aspect of being Sevadar, of the Panth, of the Sikh community of Guru Nanak philosophy, the way Bhagat Puran Singh has written is absolutely beautiful. Very simple language, very easy to read, but so soothing to the mind, beautifully written that you need to do that. And like I was saying, each of those words, Ik Onkar, Satnam, Karta Purkh, we say these words. But what do these words really mean? Ik Onkar. You can write a book on Ik Onkar. And when we talk about Karta Purkh, what are we actually talking about? You missed it, we showed a video here about quantum physics. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is actually talking about quantum physics. Honestly, Brian Cox has a better understanding of Sikhi than you and me, mate. Did you know that? Because he defines it. Everything Guru Nanak Dev Ji has said, he actually explains it better than me. Because Guru Nanak Dev Ji, like Einstein, had predicted, had produced a document, produced article, produced what we call Gurbani, Japji Sahib, which was hundreds of thousands of years ahead of its time. We are nowhere near. We are on a journey. That is why, when people do things which are contrary to, in my view, to Sikhi, I just say, let go. They are on a journey, let them do it. They'll find out somewhere along the line. Same with me. I came into Sikhi through science. I wasn't a Sikhi. There was no Sikhi in my house. My father drank like a fish, smoked like a chimney. I'm not hiding it. There was no Sikhi in my house. My children were born in a Gursikh family, and I brought them up. But I wasn't brought up like that. I was 15, 16 when I came to Sikhi, and that was due to thanks to someone that I don't want to talk about my personal life. Yeah? And to be honest, I have been on a journey. I'm very emotional about Sikhi. But I'm emotional because I'm on a journey. And this journey is taking me. I'm 73, and to be honest, this morning, every Sunday morning I do a program on Punjab radio, and I'm just discussing Anand Sahib Dibani, and I was doing 23rd Pauri. And if you look at the 22nd Pauri, 21st and 2nd Pauri, in 22nd Pauri, Guru Angad Dev Ji, actually, Guru Amar Das Ji, for heaven's sake, Bahadur, get it right. Amar Das Ji talks about the Sikh who becomes a Sanmukh. But in the next Pauri, Guruji says, Ye koi, anyone, not a Sikh, anyone who does not believe in God, who's a manmukh, who does the blah, 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 bemukh hoye, all that. Yeah, but see the difference. Exactly. In order to understand Japji Sahib, we need to pick it out. And we need to have the skills of understanding Sanskrit, understanding Persian, those languages, and those scholars, and that requires time. That requires patience. And that also requires surrendering yourself to Guru Nanak. And I don't think, we are ready for it yet, in my view. And I think I'll finish here. Thank you. Wahi Khalsa, Wahi Fateh.
Is there any homework we can do in preparation for the next session?
Hanji?
Is there any homework we can do?
The first 5 Pauris and the Mool Mantra. I'm going to spend time on Mool Mantra next time, because I knew that I was rushing. I knew that, we are going somewhere, we have a meeting. So